There is a book on a shelf in West Texas. Less than 1,000 copies survived. Collectors call them the Horned Books, and they are among the rarest works in American Western history. They are rare because in 1932, a court ordered every copy destroyed. They were destroyed because of what's printed on this page. And what's printed on this page was the last shot fired in a 35-year war between two families. Two of them did not ride home. This is the story of a debt that took 35 years to settle. It is also the story of how a man named Sam Gholson learned that some debts cannot be settled with a bullet. Kaufman County, Texas, 1864. The country was 3 years into a war it could not win. Sam Gholson was 24 years old. He had already been a Texas Ranger. He had already fought Comanches. He had a wife, a ranch, and a wagon full of supplies he was about to take home. Two non-commissioned officers stopped him in the street. They belonged to a Confederate recruiting squad. Their commanding officer was Captain John Wesley Spikes of the 12th Texas Cavalry. And their orders were to round up draft evaders. They told Sam Gholson that he was one of them. Sam asked to deliver his supplies first, to tell his wife to put his ranch in order. They refused. He was inducted on the spot, marched to Galveston, and ordered to serve out the war on the Gulf Coast. He would not see his wife or his children again for the rest of it. The same squad caught another man hiding from the draft. His name was Dave Pearl. When he fought back, they hanged him from a tree and buried him in 2 feet of dirt. Before they put Sam Gholson on the road to Galveston, he told the two men who arrested him something. He told them when the war was over, he was coming back, and he was going to kill them both. Sam Gholson served out the war 400 miles from his family. The Confederacy lost. He was discharged in the spring of 1865, and he kept his promise. He came back to Kaufman armed with 2 pistols. He found the 2 soldiers who had pulled him off his wagon a year earlier. He killed them both. And then he went home to his ranch. He had buried the 2 men who put him on that wagon, but he had not buried the man who sent them. And for 35 years, that man's name, Spikes, would not leave him alone. In 1880, Sam Gholson left Kaufman County and moved his family west. He settled in southwestern Crosby County, near a canyon spring that would eventually carry his name. It was empty country then. The nearest town was a dusty stop called Emma. In August of 1890, a man named John Wesley Spikes, the same Confederate captain whose squad had pulled Sam off his wagon 26 years earlier, moved his wife, 6 sons, and 3 daughters to Crosby County. He settled near Emma. He did not know Sam Gholson was already there. Sam Gholson did. 2 years after he arrived, John Wesley Spikes was killed by a horse. He never had to face Sam Gholson again. He left behind 6 sons: Jeff, John, Ernest, Fred, Dick, and Sam. They were ranchers now. They ran a brand called the HHH, 3 H's, Triple H. In 1899, 4 of the Spikes sons trailed 350 head of cattle across the state line into eastern New Mexico. They settled on the north slope of a mesa called Mesu Redondo, 15 miles southeast of present-day Tucumcari. Within a year, Sam Gholson moved his herd to the same mesa. He became the Spikes family's neighbor to the south. He could have ranched anywhere in the West. He chose Mesu Redondo. To understand what happened next, you have to know about a ranch called the XIT. 3.5 million acres, the largest cattle ranch in the world. Its western boundary was the Texas-New Mexico state line. And in those years, that line was a problem. Exit cattle drifted into New Mexico by the thousands. Texas courts had no jurisdiction across the line. The Mesu Redondo country became a haven for men who lived by taking what wasn't theirs. The nearest sheriff was 200 miles east. In that country, ownership was determined by the six-shooter. By 1901, Sam Gholson was 61 years old. Most men his age were looking for a rocking chair. Sam was hunting rustlers. And he had a theory about who was running them. The same family whose father had once tried to bury him. He didn't ride alone. He found allies in the XIT. A former lawman named Ira Aten, an ex-sheriff named W.H. Lay, 15 Texas gunfighters who crossed the state line with him. They were not a posse in any legal sense. They were a private army with a private grudge. The first raid was in the fall of 1901. They rode to the Spikes Ranch. The house was a stone fortress, built a generation earlier to survive Comanche raids. Only one person was home, Lily Spikes, the wife of John. The posse pulled back and set an ambush behind a hill. They didn't have to wait long. Dick Spikes, one of the brothers, rode straight into the trap. W.H. Lay put a Winchester rifle to his back. Dick raised his hands. While they were questioning Dick, two more riders crested the ridge. They saw the trap and bolted. The posse ran one of them down. He was 18 years old, a cowboy on the Spikes payroll. The other got away. Sam Gholson wanted to hang them both. 3 other men in the posse, W.H. Lay, Ira Aten, and a New Mexico rancher named Joe Rhea, refused. They escorted the young cowboy across the state line and turned him loose in Texas with a warning never to come back. They let Dick Spikes go, too. He rode away with a warning of his own. If he was ever seen on the mesa again, he would die. The warning didn't take. The rustling continued. And on January 21st, 1902, Sam Gholson rode out a second time. This time without W.H. Lay, without Ira Aten, without any of the men who had stopped a hanging the first time. The men with him this time were a cowboy named Vin Sissel and a 2-gun man named Cabe Adams. Neither of them was going to interfere. They posted lookouts on the hills above the ranch house. The Spikes brothers were not at home. They were working on a fence about a mile out. Sam Gholson moved his men into a ravine on the trail back to the house. And they waited. At about 2 o'clock that afternoon, John, Dick, and Fred Spikes mounted up and started back to the ranch house. The trail home took them past the ravine. Who fired the first shot in that lonely canyon is no longer relevant. When the smoke cleared, 2 of the 3 Spikes brothers were on the ground. The third was wounded, but alive. He kicked his horse and rode hard, and did not stop until he reached his family. The surviving Spikes sold their cattle. They left New Mexico. They moved to Lubbock. Because they knew, if they ever crossed Sam Gholson again, they would not survive him. 35 years after a wagon full of supplies was stopped in a Texas street, the debt was settled. The days of the open range were nearly over. The rustling stopped. The incident was almost forgotten. Almost. In 1929, the owners of the XIT, the same ranch whose gunmen had once ridden with Sam Gholson, commissioned a historian named J. Evetts Haley to write the official history of their ranch. Haley interviewed the cowboys. He interviewed the cattlemen. He interviewed the foreman. He did not interview anyone from the Spikes family. One chapter of his book dealt with the killings on Mesu Redondo. It described the Spikes brothers as rustlers. It named them as leaders of an outlaw gang. The book was printed in Chicago. 1,300 copies. Before they could be shipped, Fred Spikes, the brother who had survived the ambush in 1902, got his hands on a copy. The Spikes family filed 9 lawsuits. They sued the XIT and J. Evetts Haley for $2,200,000. The case went to trial in Lubbock in 1931. It was settled out of court for a substantial sum. The terms were specific: no further lawsuits, no more printings of the original text, and every existing copy of the book destroyed. Most of the 1,300 copies were still in the warehouse in Chicago. They were destroyed there. The book was reissued in 1953 with the offending chapter cut out, issued again in 1967. Both editions clean. Collectors call those later versions the dehorned books. The original 1929 printings, the ones with the chapter still in them, are called the horned books. They are the rarest works in American Western history. And every one of them is a piece of a war that the law tried to end with a check. Sam Gholson never knew about the book. He never knew about the lawsuit. He died in 1926, 3 years before J. Evetts Haley wrote a single word of it. He was buried at Tucumcari. The war he started in a Kaufman County street in 1864 had been over for nearly a quarter century. He thought, grudges are generational. They outlive the men who started them. They get handed down like land and livestock and last names. And sometimes they get handed down so long that even the ground forgets the difference between a rustler and a rancher. And sometimes the only thing left of the war is a book on a shelf that nobody can find.